Welcome back, everybody. This is the first episode of the new year. We are recording it a week before the new year, but you know how it goes. Today, if you're listening to this, is now January, and hopefully, this is a new year that's a lot better. And what better way to start the new year than talking with my dear friend Jared Glenn? Jared Glenn, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. How you been?
Wonderful, man. Wonderful. If you're watching right now and I'd rather you listen, but if you want to watch and get good headphones to listen to this beautiful voice and see this beautiful face, this man is a boxer. He's a writer. He's a trainer. He's a father. He's an actor. I have video of him singing too. So he's an artist in all ways. But Jared, what's been going on? How was you know the last year for you?
It's actually been really great. I a lot of those titles you just gave to me
Mhm.
uh, have either been put on pause or don't apply anymore. I left the gym in January.
Amazing.
Started working for the All Stars Project, which is a national nonprofit that empowers the power of performance
Mm,
and its role in developing young people from poor communities. So
yeah,
doing a lot of the same work, but directed in a very different way around helping
beautiful.
young people embrace the entirety of themselves. So that's been most of my year, and I've been really excited and passionate about it, and incredibly blessed with how it's turned out. So yeah, I'm happy.
That's amazing. That's terrific. And like one of the most interesting things is like we talked about the gym, and if you've listened to the podcast before, I've had several people on the podcast that I met through the gym that we worked at, survival jobs, and a lot of people don't need that survival job anymore because we've moved on, or we just opportunity was knocking. And you meet so many interesting things. And one of the most beautiful things about the gym that we worked at was that, I think I said this before. Remember in that one meeting where it's like, it's not a bunch of dumbbells teaching people how to use dumbbells. They're not, the trainers at this gym are not meatheads
Mm-hmm.
that you would normally think of as in other gyms teaching bro science. Is like, bro, this is your anabolic window. You got to get in there. You got to get that pump. You got to get in there. And then, you can't have sex before deadlift day. And, it's just like, it's not like that at all. A lot of these people, honestly, were steps away from being doctors. They were, Wall Street investors. Jared was a professional boxer. And, the most amazing thing is very brilliant writers.
Yeah.
Just like just brilliant writers. I've read a few of your things, and you and Ian, like just amazing writers. And you would never ever think that. Like this is one of those gyms where it's like you can't judge books by covers
Mhm.
at all.
Yeah, absolutely. There were a lot of we had some ex accountants, we had
Yeah,
some people that were still currently in school getting master's degrees and
yeah,
doctorates and so on. And I was a historian, studied history while I was a fighter. You had a lot of different types of dynamic personalities. Some people are incredibly talented in various ways,
yes,
where fitness was not the entirety of who they were. It
yeah,
was a really special place to be. I spent 10 years there, and
yeah.
I was grateful for almost all the time.
It's crazy.
Mhm.
And just to know that. I remember one time I was eating lunch in the locker room, because apparently the locker room we had to eat lunch in. That was our break room. So they had tables and there was our locker room, the peasant locker room.
Mhm.
And the conversations that would go on in there about investing and finding the right time to invest, and just the business break. I would have thought that I was in a financial office where these people just are so smart, but these are just guys and ladies who you know wanted more from life. And that was one of the most beautiful things, and one of the most inspirational things for me working at Equinox, was that there was this kind of, there was no competition, but there was just inspiration where you see everyone else working towards something else,
Mhm.
and then Jared was one of those people with the drive to do just that. And now you're not there, and you're doing really great things.
Yeah,
So that's
it was an interesting. It was kind of an epiphany that I had in year 10.
Mhm.
They send out an email when you hit these milestones,
Yeah,
and I remember getting the email and thinking to myself like, "Oh man, I don't know if I want to. I don't know if I want to hit this one. Like, I don't know if I
yeah,
want to be here for this milestone."
yeah,
And one of my clients, long-standing clients, the CEO of the Osas Project, Gabrielle Kurlander.
Mm-hmm.
She came with me for 5 years, and I trained her partner, Christopher Street, who's the president of the Osas Project. And for
Mm-hmm.
years, I had no idea what they did for a living.
Mm-hmm.
And then one day, they come up to me and they're just like, "Listen, I want to talk to you about something because I think that you might be selling yourself short by staying at the gym,
Yeah.
being a trainer. Like we talked to you a lot about a lot of things socially and politically and historically." And they were like, "You know what? We think that you can make a real impact in a
Yeah.
way that you might not realize."
Yeah.
And they made me an offer that I couldn't refuse. And
Amazing.
that was it. I was blessed enough that Equinox is the reason I found the career path that I'm on now.
Yeah.
And it's really special. It allowed me the opportunity to direct theater,
Mm-hmm.
including directing a youth production
Mm-hmm.
called Our City 2. That was all young, high school aged young people
Yeah.
who had never been on stage before.
It's
And
beautiful. Yeah.
it was great to really tap into why we enjoy doing this in the first place, and
Mm-hmm.
why seeing that wide-eyed look, that those nerves before opening night, them trying to get it
Yeah.
together, seeing them supporting one another. It
Yeah.
was really special, and there was something about it that was gratifying in a way that I would have never anticipated.
And that's what we need right now,
Hmm.
especially right now in a time that's so uncertain. And I do remember that feeling of starting in theater, and that is the passion. I think a lot of that gets drowned out. You know, I mean, in New York, especially where, it's when I graduated from grad school, everyone was talking about, who's going to get this or who's going to make it first. The make it in quotes. And for me, before even any of that, I just wanted to be seen. I didn't even know if I was ever going to get an audition. And that's, a beautiful thing where it's like you remember and go back to the basics where
Hmm.
that passion comes from. Because at some point, one of those kids could probably do something much more.
Yeah, I anticipate at least a couple of them that I said to myself, one day I'm going to be coming to your show. I'm
Yeah.
going to be trying to get tickets comps to come to your show, and
They're
I
going to ask you to play piano because you
can't.
got them into that.
Yeah, indeed.
That's a spoiler, Disney Soul, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Which is basically it's kind of what you're doing, but you
Mhm.
actually see the beauty in what you're doing. You know,
Mhm.
at this point, because I mean, what a few years ago we were writing to see if we could get stuff produced, or
Yeah.
you were at least. I'm, I loved reading your stuff, and you're still probably writing. I know you're writing.
Yeah.
You were working on a novel. You were working on. I've read a couple of your scripts, and that's still there. That passion's still there, but I think it's just getting back to the roots of it.
Yeah.
It
You
makes the
helped me
work
produce.
better.
You helped co-produce one of the first things that I ever had
Heck yeah.
made, Access Denied, that was done
Access.
in my Dumbo apartment. All the whole time on the Wall crew, y'all
Yeah.
were the first ones to put something I wrote on screen.
Yeah.
It was real
I
special.
remember that.
I just loved making stuff with you guys, and that kind of guerrilla style, do whatever it takes to get
Yes.
things done vibe. It
Yeah.
was something as a fighter, there was something about that I could really relate to, that whatever it takes mentality.
Yeah.
And I gravitated toward it real quick. So I enjoyed working with you guys. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah. And what he's talking about is we had first it was like Cage Bird Productions,
Yes.
and then it turned into Tom on the Wall, where we started doing more sketches and skits, and we did some pretty risque. At least I did. I
Mm,
mean, I did. I mean, someone asked me if I think it was Viet. He asked me, "Is like, are you scared one day that your daughter will find some of the stuff that you've done?" And I'm like, meh, no. I mean, if she's living with me, she's going to be embarrassed by a lot more than what I've done, on the internet or had on the internet. But yeah, Sirloin is definitely not going to win me any political offices. I mean, who knows? Who knows? Because then I could always use the whole body shaming thing and body positivity. I was like, you can't body shame me.
I'm about to say, if I run for political office, I will keep that up exactly as it was, man thong and everything. I don't care.
But do you remember though? So I wrote this and I was ahead of my time. This was before, our president was president. Remember the line when I think it was Ian comes in and you said, "Oh, this is I can't remember how it goes verbatim, but it's like you said, man, it was a good night." And then I think Ian says, "Yeah, it's like better than the Republican National Convention." And
Yeah.
then Stan comes in and he's like, "Yeah, they like Russians."
Yeah.
I called it.
Dead on. You're right. I remember that.
I
That was
called
right
it.
in the locker room. Yep.
It was just exactly like the Simpsons. I called it. You know, the Republicans were going to have something with the Russians,
Mhm.
and you know, it worked out, and we did some risque things, and we can look back on that 10 years from now when we're producing that as a full feature.
Well, it's the trickle down. You know, it's great for me as a person that was on the. I liked always being in the background. I like writing. I like directing. I would
Mhm.
be on screen if somebody needed me to, but it was never something that I felt like I needed to pursue.
Mhm.
But I look around sometimes and I realize there are people that I got to do some of these funny little things with
Yeah.
that have now, like yourself, that have now gone on to be people I can see on TV
Yeah.
and have that feeling like when I'm watching Madam Secretary and I'm just like, oh, it's like, oh, there goes
Who is this
Jorge.
guy?
Just
Yeah.
randomly there's a bailiff in the background. I get to see, Scott Scatliff on doing theater and
Yeah.
Carrie and like people that I got to do these little funny things with that have gone on to do
Yeah.
incredible work. It's a lot of fun. So it's something's real special about that.
Yeah, man. It's was that one of the first times like we really got you on camera? Had
So,
you wanted to act? You've done improv.
yeah, I've done improv and stuff like that before.
Hmm.
Sirloin was the first time you guys got me on camera.
Hmm.
Yeah, I had helped write and or help produce some other things for you guys, but
Hmm.
that was the first time that you got me on screen.
How did that feel?
I mean, I was wearing a thong and baby oil, so it felt pretty
Felt
good.
great then.
It felt pretty good.
Yeah.
It actually was chilly in that yoga studio.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you know.
But Chewy made good use of that slow motion. Our cinematographer made good use of that frame
Yes,
rate for my
man.
butt for my butt jiggle.
I
That
sent
was
it to a
special.
friend of mine, and well, I sent it to a friend of mine who was of that. He was a one of those. He was
Mhm.
a dancer way back in the day, and he was like, now a working person, a coach per se, and he's like, he opened it. He didn't realize what I had sent him. He's like, I'm with my students right now.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah. So I mean, you know what? Your students are probably going to have to do that at some point too. In
Mhm.
this economy.
Yeah, like listen, you do whatever you got to do to survive. Some people dance on tables, some people beat people up. It was,
You did both.
I'm thankful to say I've done both. So
It's like Roadhouse over here.
I always like to be a jack of all trades, that I could
You
do
might as well.
a little bit of everything. So that's something I take a lot of pride
So how did you go from fighting to
in.
writing? Or tell
Uh,
me the whole story. The Jared the boxer.
so I started fighting when I was very young.
Hmm.
That was more about I was never so much concerned about the winning or the losing. I was a traumatized kid. I was, I had been through a lot by that point.
Yeah.
So for me, it was more about having an avenue to get the aggression out,
Hmm.
and I wanted to hurt people, and that was literally all that drove me
Yeah.
was being in a position where I could hurt people and not get in trouble.
Yeah.
Um, I'd always been into writing and into intellectual things, and I've read a ton, and I still do. So that was something that I was always that was always in the back of my mind. I used to write poetry in high school, and then I
Hmm.
went to college, and I fought my way through. I fought my way through college, so that was the reason why I was boxing.
Yeah.
And when I finished, I kept boxing because that was the only thing that felt right to me. I had a history degree from a
Hmm.
good school, and it was still like this is the thing that feels right to me.
Yeah.
And when I retired, I ended up at Equinox. I,
Hmm.
I sat on the couch for a few months, and then
Yeah.
a friend of mine that used to be a recruiter for Equinox,
Hmm.
she asked me, she's like, "Oh well, if you getting, we could use a boxing trainer.
Hmm.
You can come to Equinox." And I said, "What the hell is an Equinox?"
Yeah.
And so I remember, long story short, while at Equinox, I met Ian Sample
Nah.
and Marcel Walker and you and
Hmm.
Vietvo, and suddenly I was found myself in this pool of these incredibly talented individuals in different facets of film, of writing, direction, and so on. And I can actually credit Ian to being the person that kind of kicked me in the ass and was like, "You should try writing something."
Yeah.
He was the person that first got me thinking of myself in that regard and kind of awakened that part of me again.
Yeah.
Um, then it just kind of took off from there. We used to have our weekly writing meetings, and
Yeah.
I was always trying things, and I like to learn, and I like to learn quickly. I don't like to rest on my laurels. So I was cranking out stuff, and I was writing full screenplays in a matter of a couple weeks. All I needed was, some time to myself and some quiet,
Yeah.
uh, and I can make a lot of things happen. I'm known for being able to write or edit very, very quickly. So that was the path to eventually feeling emboldened to write more.
Hmm.
And I can specifically credit him for helping me being
Yeah.
able to see that part of myself. I don't think I ever saw myself that way before that. I was just an instrument of violence
Yeah.
before that, and all of you guys helped me in different ways
Hmm.
see a different element of that, because you created this environment where it was safe to be funny,
Hmm.
safe to be stupid, or to
Yeah.
be silly, or completely ridiculous,
Yeah.
like a sirloin type set where I can walk around in zebra skin, or white tiger skin,
Yeah. Thong.
tights, and a man thong, and walk around like that was totally us. That was normal for us, and it
Yeah.
wasn't weird. So I think that was something that I look back on. I didn't notice it in the moment, and you never do in the moment.
No, not at
But I look
all.
back on it, and I'm like, that was the turning point for seeing myself as like, oh yeah, I can be all these different parts of myself. I can be the scholar, and I can be the guy that beats people up, and I can be this complete weirdo,
Hmm.
and all of those things be me. None of them I don't have to be married to any one of those
Yeah.
identities. So yeah, I think that was how I got here.
I think the same for me. When I was uh starting Equinox, I started in 2014. So it was like April of 2014 because I graduated in May from grad school. And I got into Equinox from our friend Lauren Salvo. And
Oh,
I
Lauren.
I I yeah, well, she's terrific. She got me in, and that's when I met Ian as well. And Ian Sample, helped me with that as well. Like we started meeting up, and he has found out he was a writer, and he found out I was an actor, and then we started tossing around ideas, and then we ended up producing with some web series.
Yeah.
And then it started, snowballing from there. And Chewy got more involved. Chewy, our cinematographer, and you got involved. And then I think you, Marcel, and Ian started that group where had a writing group every week, which
Mm-hmm.
was really cool as well. And so, yeah, like with Ian, like I learned that I was very unorganized, and I'm more of the. I found out that there's a term for writers because I had a writer on Mike Bakoven on a few episodes ago, and he said there's a thing called discovery writing where you kind of just write and you
Yeah.
write,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what I am. I just write and I just flow with it. And Ian was showing me more of the organizational producer hats, because that
Awesome.
guy, I mean, geez, like if we're producing, I have to say he took a big chunk of it. I mean, it's kind of like if we had a group project and I just asked if I could put my name on it most of the time, because he was more of the organized one. He was the one that
Mhm.
looked into the permits. He knew how to do this and that, and I didn't. And it's one of those things that I learned, more or less, that I needed to be more responsible with. And I think
Mhm.
now, after all those years, it's like 5, 6 years later, I am trying to create some of my own work. I told you before we started recording, and that kind of help is kind of what I am doing now,
Mhm.
where I am figuring out all angles. Like, so if I do this, how am I going to pitch this? Or how is this going to work with this? And how logistically, how would this even work? And why would people like just so many different things? Like, even now, if I have a question on any writing, I'll
Mhm.
send it to him because he'll just send it back with red marks.
Yeah.
You know
Mhm.
what I mean? And I know you would give me the same feedback as well. It's just like that's what I love about this group. And the thing that people don't understand is that Ian was a D1 receiver,
Yeah.
wide receiver. You're a
Oh, I,
professional boxer. And it's just like, like no one would think that these meatheads, these athletes, if you looked at us on the street, it's like, no, they couldn't be doing what they're doing. But
mhm.
surprise, surprise,
Yeah.
this is,
I think that was one of the coolest things, was how the weird path that we all took to get
yeah.
to get there and end up in the same place. Where if we had all run into each other 10 years earlier, it
Hmm.
doesn't turn out this way. It's
No.
got to be the perfect time, perfect place, and the perfect place in our lives
Yeah.
to capture something like that. And I think each of you gave me something that I still use.
Yeah.
Ian, to your point,
Yeah.
very much how I organize my approach to writing, because
Yeah.
otherwise I would be a discovery writer. And
Yeah.
he broke that from me and helped me learn how to outline.
Yeah.
You take like a Marcel, who was great at helping me describe a scene.
Yeah.
His action notes are impeccable. They always have been, both succinct and descriptive, just like you want them to be. I'm strong with dialogue, so when
Yeah.
people needed dialogue, that was something that I was good with. and then you, Lauren, Viet, Kerry, all
Yeah.
being very good at helping me bring voice to characters, and often helping me get insights into how to direct actors when they want to bring voice to character, allowing them the space to create and trusting them because this is what you do. Like
Yeah.
at the end of the day, realizing that I'm your director and I
Yeah.
can give some oversight, but I also have to trust you to do what it is that
Hmm.
you trained all this time to do. You
Yeah.
know more about that than me, and you taught
Yeah.
me humility about how to approach the craft of acting
Yeah.
and treat it like a craft, like the
Yeah.
craft that it is.
Yeah. And that's the beauty of working how we did was
Mhm.
because I was in a grad school program, and Lauren can attest to this because she dealt with it worse than I did. Where directors who are solely directors are
Mhm.
very rarely successful, and they have no clue. They never acted,
Mhm.
and they feel like they could talk down. Whereas, you have directors who can either speak the same vocabulary as actors,
Mhm.
and or actor directors, or writer directors that really understand the world that they're going for, but they know how to speak or let the actors do what they need to do.
Mhm.
Because you cast these actors. You have these actors in your either your show, your movie, your short, your sketch, whatever it is. You trust them obviously enough to cast them. So just point them in the right direction, and if it's a little bit too much, you can say, hey, reel it back, or hey, let's just try this. And a lot of directors that never had even done that, like we all were working on different positions on each sketch, each short, whatever we were doing, and we just learned how to work as a team. And a
Mhm.
lot of people don't understand that have never done that. There's just directors, and guess what, a lot of those directors aren't directing. They
Yeah,
found it hard.
what was important, you're right. What was important was that we all were very invested in the outcome,
Hmm.
whatever that was. We wanted to make the best thing possible in our own role,
Yeah.
understanding that we had to come together to do that. And I think one of the keys one of my favorite parts is holding auditions because
Hmm.
I love meeting new actors and
Hmm.
seeing them try things out and things. Like I love most people, the actors hate the audition room. That's my favorite
Yeah.
place to be to
Yeah.
evaluate people, see that line out the door and be like, okay, here we go. And this is normally I do this for theater now,
Yeah.
but it what I find that I look for in someone that I want to cast is someone that I can feel comfortable not just giving direction to, but
Hmm.
asking questions
Yeah.
and then being able to answer. Because I want to engage in a dialogue about what you think as well,
Yeah.
not just tell you what I think you should do.
Yeah.
Like I hate when if someone tells you how to speak,
Yeah.
or tells you how to say a line. I'm like, I don't. We're talking about last resort that I have to do something like that. I want to ask you what you think
Yeah.
and ask you why you're doing something, and you be able to tell me.
Yeah.
I want people emotionally in touch. That's something that I seek out, and I
Yeah.
I always appreciated all of you, the actor circle that I had, because
Hmm.
all of you very much, you and Lauren especially, very much emotionally in touch and very much able to express what it was your process, what it was you were thinking, and why you were making the decisions you were making.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And oftentimes when you have that kind of dialogue with the actors, sometimes different things pop up that might change the script. Like if you read, because I just actually I've been taking some some classes and some coaching with a good friend of mine, JJ, and we read the last few pages of Children of Men,
Uh, mhm,
and it shows one thing that's happening in that the final scene in the boat.
mhm,
He goes through this whole story about how he loses his son, and it's this big monologue. But what happens is, in the actual, if you look at the movie, none of that is in there.
yeah,
He's just saying, the baby starts crying, and he just like, pat the baby on the back, and just like this. I wonder what kind of conversation or what led to that scene. Like, was it between Clive Owen and, was it Cuaron who directed that?
yeah. I think it was quite on.
Cuaron. And
Mhm,
if that, because I mean, that's such a beautiful moment, and how things like that change. Or even something as simple as that one scene in Friends, because Rosa was just watching this video where, Ross is at the wedding, and he's talking to Emily,
mhm,
and it's like, I take Emily, blah blah blah, whatever happens. But and he was rehearsing, and he messed up, and it says, hey, Rachel, the cab's here. I mean, Emily, the cab's here. And when they heard him mess it up, they said, that's what we're gonna do for this wedding scene. So then when they show the scene, he is saying, I, Ross, take, Emily, and he's like, I take Rachel, and then everyone, stops. That famous scene, and everyone looks at Rachel, and Rachel's like, what? It's one of those things. It's just, it's a team. It's a production. Everybody works together as a unit, and of course, being a director, you have to be that vision, but you trust other people with your vision.
Yeah, when I imagine what the greatest honor must be, we follow the world of acting closely,
Mhm.
both of us,
Mhm.
not just stuff that we're involved in, but just everything in general.
Yeah.
And the one thing that I was like, man, if I could win anything in the world,
Yeah.
it would be the SAG Award for Best Ensemble Cast.
Yes.
That to me, as a director, which isn't even my award, but as
Yeah.
a director, to me, that's the best. That's
Yeah.
the best. This is everybody as a unit is crushing it. That would be the
Yeah.
greatest honor for me. Not best picture, not best anything. It would be, I got this team of actors
Yes.
who work so cohesively that
Yeah.
everybody was helping one another. That's something special.
Yeah. It's like, some of our favorite shows that we talk about, The Wire.
Ooh,
You know, The Wire is
you
an
know, I have
ensemble cast.
yeah,
Friday Night Lights is an ensemble cast because yes, you have Coach Taylor. Yes, you had Matt Saracen, who's like part of that. But Matt Saracen, a lot of his scenes were elevated because of Landry Clark.
yeah,
And they were all you know terrific actors. Like you couldn't have a lot of the scenes in The Wire without everyone else. The ensemble made
it was
everything.
a big ensemble of multiple worlds, and
Yeah,
they all. I mean, like the mantra, the credo of the Wire. All the pieces matter. That,
all the pieces matter. Yeah. Have you
yeah,
seen the
that's it.
production Bible for The Wire?
I have, yeah, oh, yeah, I have it
Like
on my. I have it
60
on,
or 70 pages.
yeah, I have it on this computer right now. This
Oh
computer.
man, yeah,
Right
I
now.
have it saved too because I've been looking at those things. But man, was it David Simon?
Mhm.
He wrote everything and broke it down
Did
just
you read
bit
the
by
oral
bit.
history? Did you read
I
the
have not yet. You told me to read that. I need to
all the
read
pieces?
that.
It's called All the Pieces Matter. Yeah, check that out.
I need
If
to see
you love
that. Yeah,
if you love the show, I blew through it in 2 sittings, and it's a big book. I
yeah,
blew through it in 2 sittings. If you love the show, anybody that loves the
yeah.
show, read that. Read that.
So many careers came from that show too.
Yeah.
Was it
I mean,
Michael B. Jordan? He was one
Michael
of
B.
the
Jordan, he
young
was
kids.
young. Yeah, young. Wow.
Young, young, young.
Young. Yeah.
I remember that.
Michael Kenneth Williams blew up off
Yep,
that show, and I love everything he touches.
yep.
Everything he touches is brilliant. But
The guy who
yeah,
plays Mike, what's his name in real life? He
Big
played
Mike,
Mike.
Tristan Wiles.
Yeah, isn't he
Mhm.
on All American?
I think he's on that. He was on like that reboot of 90210 or
Yeah,
whatever
yeah,
that was. And he's a musician on
yeah,
the side too. It was just something. It was a lot of really special stuff happening, and that book covers a lot of it, including stuff that you wouldn't know.
yeah.
Excuse me, from the outside. It's just a really special situation they had going on over there.
That's when I found out Stringer Bell was not American.
Oh, the
Idris Elba.
the
I
shudder, the shudder that went through Black America when women realized that he started talking in interviews. Said, "Who's that
yeah.
guy?"
I was like, wait, is he acting here? That's a good British accent.
Yeah,
Way to go. He's been practicing that now.
the DVD commentary, like, "Who's the British guy talking in the background?"
Yeah.
That's Stringer.
It's like, man, that's one of those things about British actors. It just it pisses me off that they're so good. They're
Yeah,
just so freaking good because it takes a while. Like there's some that they're really working through that American accent. Like I watch Billions, and the main guy from Billions, you can tell where he's like really trying to work his American sometimes.
mm,
But most of the time, I find out that they're British or they're Australian later on, and I'm like, I'm not surprised.
yeah. It's
They're so good.
yeah, him and because Stringer Bell and Dominic West that played McNulty, they were both
Oh yeah,
they were
Dominic.
locked in, and I was like, "How you do us better than us?"
Yeah, or Charlie Hunnam from Sons
Yeah,
of Anarchy. I was like,
Mannequin.
how do you do that? And here's the thing, he is going to stir a lot of shit if this really does happen. But there is, obviously we're on the border and there's the cartel, and there was a cartel leader who was arrested. They called him El Barbie because he was a Mexican, but he was blonde with blue eyes, and he was one of the heads of one of the cartels there in Laredo. And Charlie Hunnam has the rights,
Oh,
and he's supposed to play this guy.
oh boy.
So yeah, let's just see what cancel culture is going to be up to with that. I mean, I'm kind of like, you know what? Don't do it. You don't do it.
It's always a double-edged sword because one, because of this the risk of playing a part,
Mhm.
or telling a story like that, playing a part like that, especially so fresh
Yeah.
and from someone that's still living or still doing this. But also,
Yeah.
I also want to see the best art possible,
Yeah.
and I have seen inclusion go both ways of
Yes.
producing some great art and also producing some stuff that I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't know about this one. Like,
Yeah.
if I'm open to anything. If Steven Spielberg can direct The Color Purple, then I'm open. Then I'm open for.
There you go.
I just want the best person to do it. That's all.
There
I
you go.
just want the best person
And
to do it.
I agree with you. I agree with you 100% because um, I have watched and seen and been in a lot of shows that require an accent,
Mhm,
and I've had some shitty accents. Like they want me to be Nuyorican.
mhm.
It's awful. Yet I
Mhm.
book it, and people watching are like, "This guy's a fake,"
Yeah.
And then I even know people from down here who grew up with accents.
Mhm.
Like they beat this accent, this valley, the Rio Grande Valley accent or the Mexican accent. Like, hey, sir, like you know what, sir, number, sir, like hey, and we forget it. And then when you see them audition or you hear them audition, it's like, where did your accent go? You can't even do that anymore. So
Yeah.
sometimes I agree.
Yeah, it's a different. I mean, it's a different energy. I've read for stuff or help people out, but they're like, "Yo, can you say it? But like, say it more New York." And I'm like, "Fuck,
Yeah,
you talking about, man?
yeah,
Yo,
yeah,
like, it's
yeah.
a whole different way of speaking depending on where you at."
They want you
And
to urbanize
yeah, yeah, that's the word. That's the trick
it.
word is urban. And I was like, "You mean you want me to make it blacker? Like,
Yeah.
is that what you want me to do?
Yes.
Or you want me to do a country? You want me to do a country? Like, yeah, like, hey man, what's going on, pop? Like that. Like it all depends on what somebody's asking for, but
Yeah.
it's so wild that the worlds they're trying to create,
Yeah.
and then now trying to put too much of politics into how you create art when the
Yeah.
entire when and I'm not saying it's not warranted in some cases, but when the nature of art as it
Mhm.
is usually disseminated from politics.
Yep.
Is you just trying to create the best art possible.
Yeah.
And you can, there's some moments where, you look around and you realize like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Like when I realized that a white man directed Color Purple and directed Amistad, where I was like, wow,
Yeah.
this is incredible. And there are some cases where like, yeah, a black person probably should direct Malcolm X. Like that's not. I know that was a big thing when the movie came out, but I'm like,
Yeah.
no, that was probably one that was better reserved for a black person
To
to
do it.
do.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that's not blanket. It's not automatic. People can tell all kinds of stories. I wrote a love story about a white couple. I'm
Yeah.
not white. In case y'all haven't noticed, I'm not white.
I
So
mean,
like, you can tell just about any. I had the idea for the Chapas, and
yeah.
I'm not either of you. I'm not Mexican. I'm not from
No.
Texas. But I was like, I could write for this. This seems like a great story.
Oh man, you're gonna love it. You're gonna see what
Mhm.
I done, and then we'll
I
we'll
can't
see
wait.
each other in court.
Yeah, oh, yeah. The next time
No.
I see you will be between across the table of our litigators. I'll be like, hey, good to see you again. Here's my Venmo.
I'll just
Like,
bring you on to write an episode.
yeah, like, you ain't gonna be able to fool me with a production credit. That I'm too savvy for that. Don't hit me
It's
with that.
gonna be and featuring
Yeah.
Jared Cliff.
I was like, I'm too smart for that. Don't try to hit me with those vanity credits.
Oh yeah, it's just like what is it? It's like produced. There's no executive there.
Yeah, just also produced by.
Also produced by
I want
special
all,
producer. It's not even a real credit.
I want all mine, all mine.
You're gonna get it. No, well, hopefully, if we can, if I can figure out, finish writing all this stuff, then we'll see what happens. And
Anything, any way I can help out, I'm
oh,
always
absolutely.
help out 'cause I love this stuff.
So, what do you plan on doing? Speaking of writing, what have you been working on? Have you been working on any screenplays? You were working on a novel
Yeah,
last
that's
time.
my focus. That's my focus at the moment is working on a novel. I've been sidetracked a bit because with the nature of the racial and political situation in the country this
Yeah,
year, it's been my work has been a lot more intense.
yeah,
But that's been my focus.
yeah,
Struggling through some doubts of writer's block and some
yeah,
bouts of the emotional up and down. I think people may take for granted how deeply interwoven you have to be into a world or into characters to be able to write
yeah,
some of these stories,
yeah,
which can be very taxing, can be
yeah.
very it can wear you out mentally. So
Absolutely.
I have to think about all those things while I'm trying to write. But yeah, I'm writing a novel at the moment that I'm hoping to finish by March.
Yeah.
That I'll have ready to. I already have some people waiting to see it, read it,
Good.
and so that's my target. My target date to have the first draft done.
Hmm.
And other than that, it's really just I really just can't wait for theaters to open back up. I was supposed to
Yeah.
take the stage again
Yeah.
in a play
Yeah.
that would have opened 4 days after the New York City lockdown
Oh yeah.
began. We ended up having to cancel the whole run of the show.
It's
But
so
I
sad.
remember the opening night was Friday, and I
Yeah.
got the news on Monday that we weren't going to be able to put on the show. So, and I hadn't
So
been on
frustrating.
stage since college, so this was
Yeah.
a big thing for me. So I'm
Yeah.
really just I can't wait for theaters to open back up again because I love theater, I love directing theater, I love producing it. I just want to be back in our world again and doing what we do.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I talked to Kyle Scatliff a few episodes ago, and they don't even know when they're going back. They said May, but it might be August. It just depends. Hopefully sooner rather than later, but you got to be safe about everything because COVID is still a thing, and that's one of the I'm glad that you're here. You brought up the current political situation and everything. It's just
Mhm.
living here and living up there are two different worlds.
Mm,
And people don't understand the worlds, the difference
I
in
can
the
imagine.
worlds, especially like when it first came. First, it was COVID, then it became, the everything that fell in between George Floyd and all that.
Mhm.
And a close friend of mine was, murdered, a cop. He was a cop, and his partner actually a few days. It was a Thursday. I was walking with Anapower. We walk every morning, and this police officer stopped us on the side, and he's like, "Hey, is this your child?" I'm like,
Mhm.
"Yeah." And he's like, "Is this the only child in the household?" And he was approaching me real serious, and I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Is she diabetic?" I was like, "No." He's like,
Mhm.
"Okay, cool." And he was like playing, he's like, "I'm just messing with you. Like, hey, I got these treats here.
Mhm.
Here you go. Just take your pick. Some cookies, whatever." We talked for a little bit. Very nice guy. And he was the second officer arrived when they got ambushed. You
Mhm.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I posted this really nice thing because this was a very kind officer, and this was in the middle of all of that what was going on.
Uh,
And a close friend of ours messaged me and said, "You know what? I don't feel sorry." It was like, "Yeah, it's very sad what happened, but I don't really feel sorry because of all the racism with cops."
mhm.
And I said, "You realize there are no black people down here. This had nothing to do with racism. I understand what's happening, but my friend was also the other police officer whose daughter was taking a lot of abuse online. Everyone was saying that they were glad her dad was murdered and that he deserved this. And there was nothing, about that. And I understand there is a big issue
Mhm.
happening between police and black people. There's
Mhm.
that huge divide, but right down here, it wasn't happening. And it's just like the worlds are totally different. And I just, was very conflicted. And I understand where our friend was coming from. And I'm not mad at them.
Mhm.
And I understand the frustration and everything because there isn't a big issue happening all around America, you know?
It's a difficult and my condolences to your friend and his family. It's
Yeah.
a difficult conversation to have
Yeah.
with people when it is so emotionally charged.
Yeah.
You know me well enough to know that it is not in my nature to be emotionally charged in one direction or another one.
Yeah.
So because I learned how to control all that as a fighter. Angry fighters don't win very often.
Exactly.
I'm pretty level no matter what, which is what makes me,
Hmm.
from what I'm told, good at the job that I do now,
Yeah.
and engaging and moderating these kinds of conversations.
Yeah.
And I always tell people that you want to be careful not to become the thing that you're fighting.
Exactly.
And exhibiting some of these qualities that you blame the other side for, and both
Mhm.
sides are guilty of this. And I don't care what the
Very
issue.
guilty on both sides.
If you're an extreme on any issue, you're probably wrong. If
Yep.
the extreme side of either issue of anything, you're most likely wrong.
Yeah.
Because things are way more nuanced than that.
Hmm.
But it is also very difficult when lives are at stake
Hmm.
to get people to take a moment, to step back, to slow down. Some people think that they're fighting for equality and they really just want revenge.
Yeah.
And those things are not remotely in the same ballpark. So they're looking for an opportunity to try to make someone else feel bad
Yeah.
rather than try to find a way for everyone to feel better. They're
Yeah.
not worried about everybody. They're worried about themselves or people that look like themselves. And I'm saying this as a black man who's been a victim of police
No.
overbearance and brutality. It's I try to keep in mind that everybody's got a struggle that they're going through in the world. I also think that it is important that police officers are an institution. They're an
Yep.
institution. They're representative of the government,
Yeah.
whether it be federal, state, local, whatever police are. They're representative of the government. It is up to the institution, whether it is from the White House down to your local municipality. It is up to
Yeah.
the institution to gain the trust of the public,
Absolutely.
not the other way around. So many this year has shown a light on how many different institutions we have that have
Mhm.
lost the public trust.
Yeah.
Whether it's due to COVID response or the current vaccine rollout, or
Yeah.
police officers, or newspapers, news outlets, journalism.
Yeah.
All these institutions have lost the public trust, and then trying to find an equal way to try to get it back when it's on the institution to gain the trust of the public back.
Yeah.
I think whether the police officers garner some issue from the public is that they aren't as vocal about calling each other out
Exactly.
for bad policing
Yeah.
as they are at calling out all the excuses for why a person deserved to be shot or
Agreed.
strangled or whatever. And I find it fascinating because I work with a lot of police officers. I engage with a lot of police officers.
Yeah.
And it's one of the only professions I know where people cover for people doing the job badly.
Yeah.
Even though it reflects poorly on everyone else that
On
does the
everyone
job.
else. It makes their jobs harder if they're covering.
I mean, even at the gym, you knew how scrutinous trainers were.
Yes.
If they thought somebody was doing something badly,
Yeah.
they would call them out to the side, but they would call them out for sure. Like
I would call people out.
Yeah, you're reflecting poorly on the profession.
Yeah.
It's not helping any of us. All of our jobs become more difficult when you suck at it.
Exactly.
So that's the part that I think would at least help regain some public trust. And I'm not saying this at all that is relevant to what happened to your friend. That's a unique situation.
And it had nothing. There was nothing. The guy was
more vitriol for police officers. And, and the other interesting thing is that people then, thanks to some of the media reporting, they treat it as if vitriol towards the police is just a black issue.
Yes.
When I'm like, no, there's an entire wing of the world, regardless of race, that feels this way about any government representative. So
Ruby Ridge, look at that. Look at what happened with David Koresh.
Those dudes, the Waco, those dudes hate.
Yes.
They hate.
Man, there's a whole the whole NRA hates ATF.
Yeah. Exactly.
There's all these and there are like what happened, and what was that standoff at that ranch like 2 years ago where there was like this family that stood up against the cops, or even that one guy with the it's a brilliant documentary you got to watch about the killdozer.
I think I've heard of that.
Oh man,
I think I've heard of it.
So yeah, he was getting screwed over by his local government and his fellow business owners. And this guy decided to weld together a tractor, like one of those Bobcat tractors, and he put metal plates all around. He rigged it up with guns and everything, and he just destroyed all of his enemies' businesses. He went into the public offices, like he just had enough with the government. And that's what they think. That's all you see. No one ever talks about the fact that this person hated that, or what happened in Oklahoma City.
Yeah,
that was a federal building, and more kids were killed in that because it was a daycare center around there.
Daycare center down on the lower floors. Yeah.
It's crazy, and I know that people don't want to hear that part of it, and the news won't report it.
No,
that's the sensationalism, man.
There's no interest or revenue in showing the entirety of an issue. But what that was interesting about that part is we often are blaming institutions for what they give us when they are really a reflection of us.
Yep.
As people.
Yep.
People don't we really have way more control over what it is that we see.
We do.
Than we realize.
Mm-hmm.
They are showing you what you want to see, whether you know it or not. And the more that you feed into it, the more they're going to keep showing it. Divisiveness is an easy thing to sell.
Yeah.
Because everybody wants to be mad at somebody for something, rather than be mad at the establishment as a whole.
Yeah.
So it's easier to pit black against white than say poor against rich.
Yeah.
Or even though poverty is more of a contributor to crime than race is.
Absolutely.
Because it's an easier conversation to have for me to be like, hey, where are you from? Or what are you? And you ask me that back to me, what are you? Are you Mexican? You Puerto Rican? What are you?
Yeah.
Then for me to say, hey, Jorge, how much money do you make?
Exactly.
You get instantly more uncomfortable the moment that the question swerves to money, even if you make a ton of money.
Yeah.
Even if
I'll tell you, I'm a working actor, so I'm not making anything.
Mm-hmm. but to know that
But
we're
I got
sitting here,
fresh rims on the caddy though.
we're sitting here having a conversation. That would be an uncomfortable thing for me to ask you in
Yeah.
private, and we're recording this for other
And we're
people to watch,
friends.
and we're
We're
friends.
really good friends.
We're
Yeah.
close. We're close. And if I
Mm-hmm.
asked you that in private, away from microphones and
Mm-hmm.
recording, you would still be uncomfortable by me asking you that question.
Yeah.
We had all kinds of wildly inappropriate conversations about race in private,
Yeah.
like just to really laying it all out there.
Yeah.
And that's way more comfortable than if I just turn to you and say, "Hey, Jorge, how much money you make? Let me
Yeah.
take a look at W two from
Yeah.
that shit." That's an uncomfortable conversation to have, and that's
Yeah.
reflective of that's a microcosm of society as a whole. It's a
Yeah.
lot easier for us to talk about the things that we appear like that divide us
Yes.
than to talk about some of the things that really affect the differences that we have in this country. Because
Yeah.
the number of people that would amass the poor in this country would be a much larger group than if you split us up by racial demographic.
Absolutely.
If you suddenly looked around and realized, you know what, the thing that we have in common, like it far outweighs the things that we appear to have different
Yeah.
from each other.
Yeah.
That's the thing that would make the establishment a little worried.
Yes.
Then
It
you
would.
realize that those people in backwoods of Oklahoma or Texas realize they have a lot in common with the people in Marcy projects in
Yeah.
West Baltimore. Like
South
realize like wait,
Chicago. Yeah.
we
Everywhere.
look different, but we actually are having very similar struggles.
Yeah.
That thing that unites you, they don't want you to unite,
No.
and that's why anybody that's ever tried to unite has become in the crosshairs of the establishment.
They've
And
been
I'm not speaking.
suicided.
I'm not speaking conspiratorially because I'm not a conspiracy theorist. These
No.
are just facts. This is just
No.
history. History has borne that out.
Yeah. I saw a really funny senior quote that this kid put that he said the the highest the highest achievement a journalist can have is no longer the Pulitzer. It's getting killed by the CIA. CIA.
Or being locked up for not
Yes.
divulging the source. Yeah,
Yes.
going to
Like
prison. That's bad.
Snowden or whatever. And then it's fascinating because there are a bunch of conspiracy theory nuts, and then there's conspiracy theories that tend to lean toward, the
But aren't necessarily conspiracies
no,
like the
but
crack.
they label them conspiracy because they call them nuts because they're believing this and that. It's just, it's
Well, it's like the way they report on the black community's distrust of the COVID vaccine, as if we're gonna smooth roll past the fact that they were purposely giving
in
black
Tuskegee
people diseases. Yeah, the Tuskegee experiment and an
syphilis.
experiment, and
Yeah,
this was less than 100 years ago. So
yeah,
we're not gonna pretend like we have every reason to trust.
it's like 60 years ago.
Yeah, we're gonna sit here and pretend like we have every reason to trust the
Yeah,
establishment
yeah,
when it comes to something medical.
hmm,
You're gonna smooth step past that part.
yep.
That's not a conspiracy. The crack being dropped on in black neighborhoods. It's not a conspiracy.
Freeway
That's
Ricky
real.
Ross.
Again, that's real. That happened. CIA's been
Yep,
outed on that one for years.
Oliver North
So yeah,
and the Contras. Yeah,
some of this stuff is not conspiracy. It's just labeled as such, and then some of it is completely like
yes,
Sandy Hook didn't happen kind of shit.
yeah. Oh, that's
I don't,
yeah.
I
See,
don't
that's
give
the
that stuff.
thing. There's people like Alex Jones that will spout all sorts of random bullshit, just like the fluoride in the water's turning the frogs gay, and that was a huge joke. And then you figure out what he's saying years later, where is this the pesticides they're using in crops are leaking down into ponds and stuff, and it's actually changing the genders and sexes of these frogs. Like the whole biology of these frogs are from turning them male to female or asexual. So that's what he's trying to say. But then he'll start saying stuff about Sandy Hook and it not existing, and those were crisis actors, and it's
Yeah.
just, dude, like, just know when to shut up at some point. And then if you're going back to something you said, is that you have the option to not listen to a certain amount of things.
Mhm.
But through social media, you're fed this. Like in the Social Dilemma, they talk about this,
Yeah.
that this is fed to you. If you look into this thing, if you look into like what, if you're, this is like simple baby stuff, like we're gonna have a baby, so we're looking into cars or a babysitter or something like that.
Mhm.
Those ads are going to pop up, but then all of a sudden these random suggestions are going to come up on your feed for this person.
Mhm.
TikTok is the worst. Like, I am addicted to TikTok, but if you look at one video, like especially during all the protests and then the protests that turned into riots at some points, and like then all the conspiracies that go into that, like they did not regulate TikTok at all. So you saw all these videos, and you start hearing about George Soros is busting in people, and then
Yeah.
other people had their agendas and they were ruining these
Mhm.
marches. you
Well,
know, and they're making it selfish. And it's just like there's so many, it's a cocktail of just crazy going on in America right now.
I said this to a journalist not long ago in an interview that the thing that has most fascinated me coming out of this year
Yeah.
is I was naive to the general public's inability to discern fact from fiction.
Oh man.
I completely was way off base. I had way more faith in the general public's ability to be able to
Yeah.
tell what's true and what isn't,
Yeah.
and the ability to apply logic and reason.
Mm-mm.
And it has turned into even beyond my wildest imagination. Like I always knew there was some subset of people out there that will believe just about anything. That
Yeah.
part, not, like it's not like this is a new phenomenon, but how widespread it is, and then how effortlessly it's been manipulated
Yeah.
to create more of that division, to where you know, when you can't get people to understand what is real,
Yeah.
what isn't real,
Yeah.
you're in a dangerous spot
A
when
very
you get
dangerous
there.
spot.
And I think we're taking for granted, just historical example of that's not a good thing. That's not a good place to be in. There are a
No.
lot of there are a lot of Holocaust survivors that'll tell you that's not a good place to be in
No.
when you can't discern fact from fiction. That's a problem.
And at this point, for me, looking into all that
Mhm.
is like you just mentioned, like there's a lot of Holocaust survivors that can say, hey, this stuff is not good, but I can't discern which way this is leaning toward a
Mhm.
lot of time. It could be toward one side and it could be toward the other. At this point, it has not just me, it caused a lot of people to lose general faith in our government and how they
Yeah.
handle sort of things.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And I mean, I'm not a political guy. I don't really spout politics, but if the whole thing was talking about revamping the police system and getting a new adjusting how we handle arrests, especially with minorities and in the black communities and Latino communities, and we cheer when Kamala Harris is the vice president. I
Mhm.
was like, did you forget everything that she just did? Or are we going to just, hope that, what, we're going to start with a clean slate from here on out? Or are we going to forget about the 94 crime bill? You know what I mean? Like, these are the sort of things. It's like, I'm not saying I am a Trumper, but as I was like, we already know that guy, what he's done. And,
Mhm.
we have this group, and you have to choose between these two: a
Mhm.
guy who's constantly lying about numbers, a guy who's denying science, a guy who's,
Mhm.
you know, starting shit everywhere he goes just to boost his ego. He's ignoring actual scientists. He's ignoring his advisors. He's firing people left and right that don't agree with him. And then you have the other group who's saying, we're for you, but their previous records show otherwise. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
we're in a tough spot.
it's I mean, I don't have enough time, but there's not enough time in this podcast or in the day for me to break down because I am a political person.
Yeah.
As far as like I work in it, and this is something
Hmm.
I have to follow. I've followed closely since I was like 15, and
Yeah.
I have to follow it closely, not just domestic policy, but
Yeah.
foreign policy. And it's there's not enough time in the day for me to cover the many misnomers about on both sides about
Both sides.
Kamala Harris or the crime bill or any of those, or any of those things. The part that is I think is most important is there's two things, and I'm gonna
Yes.
try not to forget the second one while I say the first one. The first one is Thomas Jefferson said that the greatest something along the lines of like the greatest asset to a democracy is a well-informed electorate. The
Yes.
most critical aspect is a well-informed electorate,
Yes.
and among most developed nations, we have one of the least informed electorates about how our government works, and
Perfect.
that is in and of itself is the base starting point for a lot of the problems,
We have.
that we have,
Yeah.
because so much of it is revolved around public perception, and most people don't know how our government works on any level, federal
Yeah.
down to local level.
Yeah.
So they're basically regurgitating whatever someone tells them to feel,
Yeah.
and there isn't much original thought happening anymore.
Nope.
There's usually just somebody saying something that they heard someone else say, or reading something and just reading someone and taking it as gospel rather than primary
Or getting their news from
count.
Facebook.
Yeah, oh yeah, well that's a whole other. I don't even use Facebook like that anymore. But that's a whole other
I don't do
thing. So
Facebook.
I said to a friend of mine last week that I'm making it a point to avoid opinion overload.
Yeah.
There's too many people's opinions, in part because it doesn't help me do the work that I intend to do, and
Yeah.
also because I realize it. Like, just stop looking at comment sections, man. That stuff is poison.
Oh man, I stopped doing that. The
Yeah,
only comment sections I'll look at are ESPN or like Sports
yeah,
Center
sports. If it's sports related,
if
I'll
it's
do
sport,
it.
because sometimes those comments are hilarious. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? Or
Like
you
for
get these
someone,
random bots, in the middle.
you want something long and hard,
Yeah,
like what, like all these different things that you always pop up, or like, yo,
yeah,
check out my music, whatever.
yeah.
But the
He's
other,
like, if I get 100 likes, my dad will buy me a car.
and the other thing I want to make sure I don't forget, the other thing I
Yes.
was thinking of as a historian, and
Mhm.
it's something I've thought of for a while. So these documents that so many people, especially on the right, but so many people
Yes.
laud as being like gospel, like the Declaration of Independence, the
Two-way.
Constitution, and these were made, in the 18th century.
Yeah.
In less than 100 years from when they were made, the country turned on itself and almost
It
destroyed.
imploded.
So we have to think for a moment that maybe the things that we have founded this democracy on
Yeah.
might not be the most sound possibilities or sound options that we could have had.
Yeah.
But it might be time to rethink them. When
Yeah.
in 1776 this nation began,
Yeah.
and by the 1850s, 1860s, when the same people that were free then were or the same people that had power then
Yeah.
had power 100 years later,
Yeah.
just landowning white men. None of that had changed.
Yeah.
None of that had changed, and the country still turned on itself.
Yeah.
So maybe this whole thing was built on a foundation of sand, and we need to rethink how it is that we do it.
Yeah.
But you can't topple any system if you don't understand how it works.
Exactly.
Period. Like it doesn't matter what. I don't care if it's capitalism, the
Yeah.
education system, poverty, whatever it is. If you don't understand how it works, you cannot topple it. And my problem with people on both sides that
Yes.
claim to be activists trying to fix something or change something is that many of them that speak the loudest know the least, and they don't actually know how it works.
Amen.
Mhm.
I agree 100% with that. And that's one of the biggest frustrations I had when I was in New York and now that I'm here. Because in New York, it was one way most of the time.
Yeah.
It was a liberal minded view.
Mhm.
Down here, it's super conservative. So,
Mhm.
like, what I'm hearing here is first of all, you're in New York City right now.
Mhm.
You've gone out, you've seen your son,
Yeah.
you've walked the streets to get some fresh air. Are there riots and like burning buildings? Does it look like the Warriors, the movie Warriors? Does it?
Not even close.
Thank you.
No.
Okay, there's so many freaking people down here who A have been to New York once every 2 years or have never been to New York or like remember like New York from the 70s.
I was about to say
From movies,
if it was the 70s or the 80s, you might have a point.
from movies.
Mhm.
So right now, people are telling me, "Oh, I'm so glad you came back down because right now New York is burning. They're boarding up all of their windows and
Mhm.
shops are burning down. There are riots left and right, and it's a ghost town."
No.
And I'm saying, you know what? No, I spoke to a few of my friends who like drive through there and walk through there
Mhm.
and live in there. It's not that bad. It's not bad
I
at all.
work in Manhattan. I live in Queens. I see
Thank
the
you.
city every day,
But
and
that's the news they're receiving. They're
Mhm.
being told, like, New York is a ghost town. People are fleeing
I
because
wish it
it's
was a
there's no
I wish it was a
work.
ghost town. Trains are crowded as hell. I wish it was a
Yeah,
ghost town right now.
man, I do not miss that at all. I do have to say, watching Soul this
Mhm.
past week, like a lot of
That's a
people were,
very
were
New
getting
York movie.
emotional for a few things. I think that movie hits on so many things, and I'm sorry to change the subject because we were on
No,
something, but
please do,
it
please
just
do.
you reminded me of the subway and that movie. Pixar stepped its game up so much from
And
every
that's
other
saying
movie,
something because their game was
design wise.
already up. Their game was already up, so that's
It was
saying
already up, and the lighting that they had for the subway scenes,
something.
I got homesick. I
Yeah.
missed New York. And there was just so many scenes in there that I just missed being over there. I missed New York, and then of course that ending is kind of like,
I
man,
mean, yeah, I mean, me and Tree watched it together, and it was definitely a. I was choked up. He was crying. Like it was
yeah,
definitely a thing that makes you.
yeah,
Pixar has a way of doing that, man. Where they
yeah,
just really they take these animated movies, but they give you this rich plot and these deeply emotional
yeah,
moments and arcs that make you really ask questions. And
yes,
that's why I love Soul. It's why
yeah,
I think Inside Out is one of the greatest movies of the 20th century.
yeah.
As well, it's
It's one
analysis,
of the best movies I've ever seen. Inside
but
Out.
it's analysis of human emotion
Yeah,
and just really sitting back and think about it. Like, man, maybe depression isn't when just my sadness is really high. Maybe
yeah,
just happiness has left the room and the other emotions don't know what to do. And
exactly.
I'm just sitting there, and my son is loving it. There's cartoons talking, and
Yeah,
I'm sitting there having like, man, I need to call my dad. Like,
yeah,
like, I'm like, I'm
yeah.
having this like, I need to call my therapist.
Yeah, no, it I And that's one of those things. It's like a lot of people um don't know what to do with their emotions. And like Pixar has really painted really good pictures with
Hmm.
that in the last few movies they've made. And I it's kind of nice to see something like that
Yeah.
being brought out and produced, because just going back to what I was saying not even a few minutes ago about the news that people are getting down here,
Hmm.
everyone thinks that New York is on fire. They're lighting fires in trash cans. There are all these, it
More than,
just
no
looks
more
like
than usual.
a ghost town. And I'm like,
No, I wish the
no.
story is more packed than ever.
Oh,
People,
man.
people are everywhere. I wish there were less people out here. People are everywhere. But there was
And
there
that's
were
the
some
thing.
lines. There were some lines in Soul that really stood out to me, and there were two in particular. One of them was like
The fish in the water.
there was one where she said, "You can't crush a soul here. That's what life on Earth is for."
Oh yeah.
She said that. I said, "Oh man!" Like, and then yeah, it was, and then it
That's
said
like Tuesday every day
when
for
you're something
me.
about when your joy becomes an obsession, you become disconnected from life.
Yes.
And then it's and then
Yes.
me and Julie both look at each other like, holy
Yeah.
like because we're both very work career driven,
Yes.
like grind constantly people. And I was like, damn, I need to sit down and reevaluate. And I'm like, this is a Disney Pixar movie.
Yeah.
This isn't like, you know what I mean? This is like and they're killing it.
The
I was
that
like, there's no other film that are making me ask these questions of myself. I was like,
that whole
they might be able to change the
scene,
world. Disney Pixar might be able to change the world.
they could. And if people could grasp onto that, but then again the movie ends and life
Mhm.
goes on, and then where do they go right after that movie?
Mhm.
Just
Yeah, right back to
let
the
me go back to TikTok, and let's just, and the thing is, like, TikTok, people think it's just dances and people doing like really weird things. No, man, there's a lot of conspiracy stuff. There's a lot of like like negative stuff. And just they don't regulate comments a lot of time on TikTok. So people are brutal. Brutal.
it's the faux connectedness. It's the
Oh,
fact that the internet and all of its wonderful things that it has done, it has given voice. And I'm going to say this, and this might be controversial, but I'm in the nature of like I'm when somebody gonna do come beat me up. I'm not worried about it.
there's not enough people listening to this anyway.
But it's
I would have been canceled a long time ago. I have said some really bad things.
but it's given voice to some people that no one should ever have had to hear.
Exactly.
There are some people that know,
Just
like, no, not everybody's opinion is equal.
no,
Not everybody's opinion
no,
is equal. My opinion on quantum physics is not equal to a physicist because I
no,
don't know jack shit about quantum physics.
no,
Our opinions are not equal.
no.
So they give voice to people that should have remained voiceless.
Yeah.
Call that fascist, call it whatever you want. It's like I'm just saying we might be better served if we all went without the internet for like 6 months.
That's been some of the best times for me when in 2019 when Rosa was pregnant. It was like the last, second half of the second trimester till, Anapa was born. I didn't have social media for that purpose because I was already getting into a negative headspace.
Yeah.
And I was listening to Joe Rogan talk to Bill Burr.
Mhm.
And Bill Burr was talking to Joe about how when Joe was on news radio, and they said like it was crazy that some of the most successful people he was working with at that time in the 90s, they would go to these rags like Variety, and like they would open up the magazine and it would say like so and so just signed with WM William Morris at the time.
Yeah.
I think William Morris joined into WME later on. And so and so just booked this movie deal with this studio and blah blah blah. That was in the 90s. At that point, 2019, I was doing that through social media because Deadline and Variety post so and so to set to recur in new pilot. So and so leads new pilot. And a lot of time they were my friends.
Mhm.
People I would never even audition against at all. You know what I mean? Like, how is
Yeah.
this pretty blonde boy, I'm gonna compete. I'm a stubby Mexican dude, a stout
Mhm.
Mexican dude.
Yeah.
And like, why would we're not even going into the same,
Mhm.
audition slots, you know what I mean? Unless they're running over, and I happen to show up early. It's like, oh, let me pull out these sites from this other folder. You know what I mean? It's one of those. And I hated that negativity, but people do that all the time, and they use social media. They'll see like the Paul brothers, and you're a boxer. I'm sure you have thoughts about them
Mhm.
stepping into that arena and
Mhm.
causing this kind of like shout out culture, which is we there's always been Aldo, and
Yeah.
Dio.
Yeah.
Aldo, he spent 10 years with Mendez Boxing, and we talked about that whole circus that was the Roy Jones Jr. and
Yeah.
Tyson fight, that whole the Logan or Jake Paul fight,
Jake
and
Paul? Which one of the Pauls?
Jake
Yeah.
Paul. Jake
Jake Paul.
Paul. And what was funny was right after we had recorded that, that's when Logan Paul got the Floyd Jr. fight.
Mhm.
And it's
It-
just like where like this whole year has been so crazy, from people denying COVID.
mhm.
There's people, starting and crushing a movement that needed to be heard,
Mhm.
because they weren't getting attention in Seattle or in Portland. So we're
Right.
going to go over here and say we're going to help the movement, but they're not. They're only helping themselves.
Co-opting. Mhm.
That's all it is. And then now you have this kind of culture where we're going to be chasing likes and views, and they're making tons of money, and that's
It's
a
just
scary
because
society we're living in.
we're crowdsourcing everything. We're crowdsourcing journalism.
Yep.
We're crowdsourcing like sporting events. But it's just like, yo, we want to see this fight or this fight, and they decide, hey, let's go do it.
Why not?
Who's asking for this? This is
Yeah,
not this is not helping the sport.
not at
I'm
all.
I'm very emotional about the state of boxing at the moment,
Yeah,
in part because of how promoters have ruined it
yeah,
and how things like the Floyd Mayweather Dream fight, like fighters that are no longer fighting, should
yeah,
walk away into the sunset and allow
yes,
these. There are great, like I'm hearing all this stuff about Jake Paul's fighting Nate Robinson and Mike Tyson fighting Roy Jones, and
yeah,
I love Mike Tyson. Like,
yeah.
but meanwhile, there was a huge fight between Errol Spence and Danny Garcia that
No one
nobody was,
saw.
no one was
And
talking
Errol
about.
Spence is like the biggest underdog. I think he doesn't get the love that he deserves.
Most people that even claim to be boxing fans don't know anything about Errol Spence Jr.
Yes,
And he's incredible. I'm like, there are real fighters who are currently relevant
yes,
that no one is hearing about.
yep,
And then that part bothers me because then the sport can't transition. When we're still worried about what Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao are doing,
yeah,
we aren't, or throwing them in there with random YouTube celebrities, we aren't moving forward to what boxing
no,
actually is. One thing I give the UFC credit for, and I
yeah,
follow both because I'm a
yeah,
fan of both, and one thing I give UFC credit for is that they put on the fights that are fucking relevant. They
yes,
don't just randomly throw people in there for the sake of entertainment. No, you know what's entertaining? Good, relevant fights.
yes.
That's entertaining.
And Dana White was calling this years ago that boxing was, struggling
And he would
Be-
know because he got his start in
in
boxing.
boxing. Yep.
He got his start in boxing. That's how he knows what the problem was with the sport.
And he still
And
watches that.
I trust his judgment about that kind of thing. He knows. He
Yeah.
knows. And he's a big fan of boxing. He says so all the time.
Yeah.
So he
He
hates
still
seeing it.
watches it.
Yeah, and he hates seeing it like this. And I
Yeah.
hate seeing it like this. I love this
You
sport
can
since I was a
imagine.
kid. The first time me and my dad ever hugged was over a boxing match. Like I
Yeah.
love this sport. When
Yeah.
Marco Antonio Barrera knocked down Prince Nassim Hamed, we
Yes.
jumped up out of off our couches and embraced. It's the first
Yes.
time I hugged my father in my adult life.
Yeah.
And I think I was like 16 or something like that.
Yeah.
It was incredible. Like the sport needs to be taken seriously again, and
Yeah.
it's hurting itself by putting on these minstrel shows.
Do you think that they have too many belts?
They've always had too many belts.
Yeah, but do you think like it's gotten out of control? Because like when Canelo was fighting this past weekend,
Mhm.
it's like, who's this guy? And why isn't he not fighting who is it? Charlo.
Well, here's the thing, well, my theory, what I think would work, and I think Floyd touched on it toward the latter part of his career. You don't
Yeah.
need him to be sanctioned about this.
Uh-uh.
When people want to see a fight bad enough,
They'll make it happen.
make it yourself. The sanctioning bodies need you, not the other way around.
Yeah.
Like, you can make it. You can make if Floyd and Manny wanted to fight each other for nothing
Yeah.
in a parking lot. People are going to come out to see that fight. They don't
Yeah.
need the WBC to put a belt on the line. Who
Yeah.
cares? There's 64 of them. No one cares about what belt is on the line. We just want to see
Exactly.
the two guys fight each other. That's it. So
Yeah.
the fighters could take a note from the NBA empowerment era, and the
Yeah.
fighters could just say, "Listen, my camp and your camp, we want to fight each other. Forget about sanctioning bodies. Forget about TV network, any of that, whatever. We want to fight each other. people want to see us fight bad enough, they'll come out to see it no matter what it's on.
Yeah.
The fight could be on YouTube Live and they'll watch it. They just want to see the fight.
I guarantee it'll probably happen soon.
And if they wanted to have boxing reach the real missed opportunity to me was when I think back on what boxing used to be like, and my dad tells me stories about going to fights at the movie theater,
Yeah.
when he was younger. But like if Floyd, and this would have never actually happened because of money, but if Floyd and Manny had fought each other in not even just like Arlington Stadium, if they had fought each other in a wide open field in Africa
Yeah.
and charged $10 a head,
Yeah.
and they had 500,000 people show
Yeah.
to watch the fight, like
Yeah.
that's the kind of event that would transform
Yeah.
the culture of a sport forever.
Yeah.
Rather than say it should be $30,000 to get a ringside seat, say no. This is a fight that the general public should be able to see.
Yeah.
Put it in as big of make it Woodstock. Put it in as big a field as possible. Put up big screens. Charge $25 a head.
Yeah.
And the number of people you would get to come out to that, it wouldn't just be a boxing match. This would be something else
It'll be a
entirely.
spectacle. Yeah. It'll be like a festival. And I do you think that Floyd fighting Logan Paul is kind of tarnishing his legacy a little bit, or just, he's just having fun, or it's a waste of his time, I think.
It's definitely a waste of his time. There's nothing for him to lose. There's nothing for him to gain.
Everything for him to lose, though.
Everything for him to lose. I mean, an errant punch. Now, granted, when people haven't been doing this the way, like if real pro fighters couldn't put a clean one on Floyd,
No.
I don't think Logan Paul's gonna pull it off.
No.
but you never know. Boxing.
It's a never say never.
There are.
I would never risk it though.
If you think of the 10 most bizarre moments in sports history, like
Casey
7
at the
of
back.
them happened in boxing matches.
Yeah.
Between the bite fight and Fan Man,
Yeah.
and all these, boxing is prone to bizarre. Oliver McCall had a nervous breakdown in the fight against Lennox Lewis. Like, these are like a legitimate crying fit, stomping around the ring. He lost his mind.
Yeah.
Boxing is known for having this kind of bizarre shit happen.
Yeah.
So, is it totally out of the realm of possibility that Logan Paul lands an errant punch and knocks Floyd out?
Yeah.
Who knows?
I remember the bite fight where I was in Austin with my cousin, and his dad went to go watch the fight at his friend's house, and he came back, and he didn't want to take us, so I was like, man, whatever. So he came back, but he brought a video cassette of the fight. Like, so he recorded the fight. So he went over to someone else's house and recorded it and took his own VHS, which I thought was the coolest thing. Like, I'm 38 now, I'm gonna be 38 now, and I was like, I'm thinking back to when I was like 15 or 14, whenever this happened, and I was like, this guy took a video, his own. He went out and invested in a video cassette so he can record it at a friend's house, not even his, at a friend's house. Then he brought it back and watched that. And I remember that fight so well and how crazy it was. And we were trying to pausing it and rewinding it. And it's just one of the most baffling moments ever in boxing. I was just like, that was amazing.
I was watching that with my dad and my brother. And I remember my brother turned to my dad and said, I think he bit him. My dad's like, what the hell are you talking about? He didn't bite him. And then they show the replay and I was like, yo, he bit him.
He bit him, yeah.
It was absolutely nuts. But on the same token, what I think boxing needs to realize, remember what they are, and that there aren't many sporting events that are more exciting than a great boxing match.
Yep.
They're some of the best, like we talking about, put it right up there with the Super Bowl, NBA Finals, World Cup. Yep. When we talking about wall to wall, just can't you don't want to keep staying in your seat excitement.
Yep.
Bo Holyfield, Castillo Corrales won.
Yeah.
Like, these kind of things are the excitement level you get from watching a fight like that.
Yeah.
Is otherworldly.
Yeah.
Even just the build up to a fight that ended up not being that great, like Mayweather Pacquiao.
Yeah.
Mayweather just ended up dominating him. Like, even a fight like that, everybody was talking about it. I lived uptown at the time in Dykeman. I had 25 people at my place in a 1-bedroom apartment to watch the fight.
Yeah.
And I was putting on the fight without charging anybody. And my whole neighborhood, you can hear other TVs in the apartment complex. Everybody's watching this fight. Everybody. People, the woman working behind the counter, Dwayne Reed, saw me picking up beer and was like, is this for the fight tonight? Yeah. Everybody knows this is happening. It shuts everything down.
Yeah.
When Ali fought Frazier, the world stopped. This is what all eyes are on here.
Yeah.
Boxing has that kind of power. And if they don't if they don't build their stars up again to get to that point, it will never be what it was.
I grew up during the De La Hoya era. And obviously, being Mexican-American, he was our hero. He was the golden boy. And I remember we would get the fights, and I would go to my dad's, or we would go to my uncle's. And then obviously we would bring a TV outside,
Mhm.
and we'd have the box, which the FBI knows
We
those
all had,
boxing,
I had, we
the
had,
box.
yeah, we
So
had
we
that.
all watched either WrestleMania or
Blur my
boxing
face.
matches
Blur
for
my face.
free. And it didn't matter, if we're out, in Mission, Texas, or in Edinburgh, Texas, or wherever, you can hear the cheers throughout the whole neighborhood, and
Mhm.
just smoke from barbecues throughout the whole neighborhood. And I don't remember that. I don't see that happening as much anymore. And
No,
I
because
miss that. That's one of the things, like, I miss that. I remember I went to one fight. I went to the Cinco de Mayo fight in I was in Jacksonville, and it was a bunch of white people, and it was like, De La Hoya and Mayweather. And it was just one of the weirdest things, is that none of these people were boxing. They didn't know about, but they had this, and it was a huge party, and everyone was about that fight. And I missed that. I missed
you
those
shouldn't,
big events.
because you shouldn't be trying to get boxing fans.
No.
Boxing fans are going to watch it no matter what.
Yeah.
I'm going to watch the fight no matter what happened. You're
Yeah.
trying to get the layperson. De
Yeah.
La Hoya was excellent at getting that
Yes.
because he was a good-looking guy.
Yes.
I never saw more women at boxing matches than when De La Hoya was at his was at its peak.
Yep.
Like, he had groupie love and all that.
Yeah.
But boxing doesn't build up its stars enough anymore.
No.
There used to be a level of fame. Excuse me. There used to be a level of fame attached to being a heavyweight champion or something like that. It used to be the greatest title in the world. You would see
Yeah.
them everywhere.
No.
Like, it's going to be hard for me to put in context to my son how famous Mike Tyson was when he
Exactly.
was at his peak. Like, how famous Mike Tyson had a video game. He was on chocolate bars. He was on Diet Pepsi commercials.
Yeah.
He was everywhere.
Everywhere.
And now you won't see any boxer like that. Floyd's was
No.
the most famous one, and you don't see him doing any of that stuff.
None of that stuff. And even like the heavyweight title was the big one.
Yeah.
Everyone was all about that. But
Mhm.
the Gypsy King, Tyson Fury, ain't that,
Mhm.
you
Well,
know,
part of what hurt that is the once the fight game became more international.
yeah.
If you can't get it, if an American doesn't hold the heavyweight title, it just
No.
immediately
Yeah.
stop being popular.
Yeah.
It's like, well, who wants it now? It started changing hands between the British and the Russians
Yeah.
for the longest, and I was like, oh, nobody. And then the fact that there's 4 belts,
Yeah.
nobody's watching that.
Yeah. And Deontay Wilder was onto something, because he was knocking people left and right. He was knocking
Yeah,
them out.
but he was flawed. I mean, he's
He,
fundamentally flawed.
yeah.
You always just knew that bubble was going to burst
Yeah.
at some point.
Always haymaking it.
It actually could have burst sooner. There were some fights before that where his
Yeah.
knockout power got him out of a jam. Where he was getting
Yes.
his ass kicked, and his
The
knockout
fight
power.
right before Fury won,
Yeah, I can't remember the person
they
he fought.
almost knocked him out. The
Cuban
fucking
fighter.
yeah.
Oh yeah, almost knocked him out. And
Yep.
the problem was, if the dude could have got out of the way of that right hand,
Yep.
he'd have went on and won the championship.
Yep.
So that Wilder bubble was going to burst at some point, no matter what.
You get a little chubby Mexican,
Mhm.
just like Anthony Joshua found out that first time. Telling you.
Well, he was another one that was flawed, but that's a former football player. Like,
Yes.
the fact that these guys can manage even to get this far in boxing, when in the 90s,
Yeah.
you wouldn't even know their name.
He went through the whole Rocky phase where, he's super rich and stuff. It's like, dude, you won one championship. Like, you haven't done that.
I'm like, everybody relax. Everybody relax. It doesn't mean what it used to mean. It's not the same thing anymore.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's so crazy. So yeah. So what do you think, or what are you looking forward to in the new year? You've been working. Talk to me more about the All Star, the project you're working on, and the
Mhm.
kids you're working with, and what kind of projects you're working on with them, and what's the future with that. You know.
So the All Stars Project embraces performance as a way of, as a method of empowering young people from poor communities.
Yeah.
And what I'm most looking forward to in the new year, revolving around that, is really trying to expand more of our capabilities in this virtual space.
Yes.
We've done a lot, we're in the nonprofit world where 90% of nonprofits went under when the
Yes.
pandemic took hold, and the lockdowns began. And I really applaud and commend our team for the way that we responded, and in making sure that we were still able to provide for our young people in
Yeah.
spite of everything else that was going on. And we have multiple programs that we're hoping to be big parts,
And you're famous.
of uh, big parts of of the path forward. One, the fact that we have our development school for youth, which prepares young people for performance in the professional world,
Yeah.
in the business world. We have many companies that help out with giving us workshops, teaching young people about various aspects of industry, and they often provide internships by the end to give them an opportunity to work, including virtual internships now, give them
Absolutely.
an opportunity to work in this environment and go into college or wherever they intend to go after high school with this very unique experience
Yes.
that they can put on their resume and call on and develop these partnerships through
Yeah.
our development coach training that develop these partnerships with people that can last far longer than just an internship, where they'll have these people that they can reach out to anytime and ask them questions, pick their brain about how they got where they are, really develop relationships with people. And
Yeah.
we have some great companies that have helped us, from MetLife to JP Morgan to so many, too many for me to even name, honestly, that have
Yeah.
really been gracious enough to give of themselves and their time to help some of these young people. So we have that. We have many new programs that we're hoping to try to help improve police community relations, including the recent contribution from the New York Jets to
Oh,
help.
sweet. Yeah, I saw that.
They
That's
gave,
awesome.
yeah, they gave 250K toward our programs to help deal with some of the issues in the New York and New Jersey
Yeah.
communities. Really, really excited about that.
Yeah.
So that's probably what I'm most excited for in the new year, is just see what the possibilities may be for what we can do, and really push ourselves to do more than we even did in 2020. We
Yeah.
had a great year in 2020 in spite of everything, and I think that we can build on that for
That's beautiful.
2021. And if we can build on that, that just means more for our communities. I think that's something
Absolutely.
that we really need right now.
I think one of the things that you touched on with the performative arts or the performing arts is that a lot of times people think that because you're in theater, because you are acting, or even just doing a play or even taking an acting class, the automatic assumption is, oh, you want to be a movie star, or oh, you want to be on Broadway. But it's just like you said, it helps business. It helps
Yeah,
students break that shell. And that's one of the things, like if I were ever to teach, it's just, I know that if I were to teach here in my undergrad, I know a majority of the people are not going to go out and become professional actors. That's just a
mhm,
fact. The
mhm.
fact is they are going to have to work in a job where they need to communicate. And we've lost so much communication skills because of social media, because of cell phones. And if
Mhm.
you can at least break those shells, just like rip off all those, you know, blankets that they have on, covering themselves from, feeling embarrassed or just shy, or just even speaking in public. Kids can't even speak anymore. I don't know if you notice, like near the end, if you're hiring front desk people at the gym where we're at, it's very hard to get good workers to even say hello,
Mhm.
Jared. Hi, Jorge. Like you
Mhm.
can't even get them to say hello, blank name. You can't.
It's because it's created this false idea of human connection that
Yes.
we're not actually connecting with people.
And people don't even talk anymore. And if you have someone, from wherever, whatever economic background, if they're from, Bed-Stuy, or they're from Brownsville, Brooklyn, or, wherever it is, or here, even here in, like, Las Milpas, Texas, or McAllen, Texas, and you help them with their communication skills
Mhm.
and give them that kind of, um, that skill set that they need, that would help them with other skill sets, for college, and in preparation for that, they the world is theirs.
Yeah,
Because a lot of kids are losing that, no matter
yeah,
what economic background. A lot of kids are
mhm.
losing that.
And that's what we're trying to help keep
That's
in mind.
amazing.
So what we're doing, and you would appreciate this as a performer,
Yeah.
we've embraced the idea that all of life is a performance. Like
Yes.
you're performing all the time. It's not just for on stage, and you're not just pretending to be someone that you're not. You're
Yep.
just being different versions of yourself. And
Yeah.
so it's a when I go to work, I'm putting on one performance, and I'm putting on one costume,
Yep.
one bit of wardrobe. When I come here, I'm doing a different one. When I'm interacting with my son, I'm
Yep.
doing a different one. They're all me. They're
Yep.
all just different versions of me. We're embracing the fact that adults and young people can learn a lot from indulging in more performance and really looking at it that way
Absolutely.
instead of shying away from it.
Yeah.
And but you're fighting against the tide of social media, of the full connectedness of the internet, because people think they're engaged. We talk about this all the time, whether it's through social media or dating apps or whatever, that
Yeah.
people think that they're actually engaging with people. You're
Yeah.
not engaging with people. Like you're not actually engaging with people. And we're going out of our way to avoid
Yeah.
engagement and then pretending that we're still having it. and that I think is a big problem that we're
There,
trying to
there's so many
understand.
keyboard warriors that you can get them, type them. You can
Oh
type
yeah.
up a whole argument here and there, or you can, text something. But then
Mhm.
when it comes to an actual conversation, no one, a lot of people are missing those skills.
And some of them can't even type up a coherent.
They
You
can't.
know, they can type it,
No, they
but a
can't
coherent
even. Yeah,
argument, yeah, a
there's
coherent argument, no. They
none
just
at all.
because they're in a wind tunnel. Social media creates this vacuum where
Uh-huh.
you only engage with people who agree with you, and you only
Yes.
see things that you agree with, or that they will disagree with in the right way. You're not actually. College used to be the place you went to engage with people from different backgrounds,
Yeah.
with different perspectives, and
Yep.
now college has become this opinion laden cesspool where everything is triggering,
Yep.
and nobody wants to be uncomfortable, and they think they're
Yeah.
entitled to be comfortable, and no one's entitled to being comfortable anyway.
No.
The reality is that they think they're prepared for the world, then they get out in the world and realize that they are wholly
And the
unprepared.
world is tough, and then they crumble. They need to find that pack again that agrees
Mhm,
with them, so they can feel good about themselves. When in
mhm,
reality, it's kind of like, you and I, we have kids.
mhm.
Your son's a lot older. How
He's
old is he now?
11.
11. So
Mhm.
he's not a teenager yet, but you
Close enough.
know,
Yeah.
it,
He's five
it,
foot.
it,
He's 5'2". He's
uh,
close
he,
enough.
he's getting tall, and he's growing, and you are preparing him,
Mhm,
for the difficult world out there, that you're not going to win everything.
mhm.
Those participation trophies, they're nice
The
and
orange
all, but
snitches. Yeah.
you ain't
Mhm,
going to get that. That's not, I mean, you apply for a job and you think everybody's going to get a ribbon for applying for the job.
mhm.
No,
Or
only a
even think
couple
that you're
people.
gonna get an interview. Like,
Exactly.
I'm like, you can't major in basket weaving in college and then come out wondering why you don't have a job.
Exactly. It's a, I mean, a lot of kids are majoring in those things because it's easy. It's not
Mhm.
challenging.
And they think that they're entitled to enjoy themselves, entitled to be comfortable.
Yeah,
No one's
because
no one's obligated to be comfortable.
the world owes us. We
Mhm,
need everything handed to us. And,
mhm,
I don't want to sound like that old man. And I've had some very fortunate, you know, things happen in my life, but, it hasn't been easy.
no, not at all.
And nothing has ever been easy.
Mhm,
Um, but I worry about our kids, or like the world that they're going to be in, or we don't even know what they're going to be facing in 10, 15 years, or what's going to be happening in schools, or
mhm.
what kind of world we're living in.
Well, I don't know if you remember the conversation that you and I had when you first told me that Rosa was pregnant,
Yeah.
and you were thinking about like the path forward and like being ready and all this. And I
Yeah.
said, don't worry about being ready to have children. There is no
Yeah.
such thing as ready to have
Oh
children.
yeah, never.
I was like, the moment that baby comes, you're going to realize that you have no idea what the hell you're doing, and you're
Yeah.
going to figure it, and you're going to figure it out as you go.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you that has borne itself out in this first year of having that pal around,
Oh
and then
man.
you have another one. You're gonna realize that it could be totally different for the second baby.
Yeah.
But stop thinking that you can predict how this is going to go and you can
Yep.
control every aspect of it, because you
Yep.
can't. You do the best you can to prepare your children,
Yeah.
and then I see them go out in the world, and then I just like sit back and watch and enjoy what it is that he's doing.
You hope that you did everything you could, and at some point, they're ready.
There's
I
some,
was I was teasing Frito. You remember
oh yeah, I
Frito?
remember. Yeah, I love freedom.
I love to get under his skin about Star Wars because he loves Star Wars. So
Freedom seriously.
yeah, he takes it serious, and I know it, and I think he knows it. And so we got into, like, I was teasing him about it and saying that Harry Potter was better, and this was literally last night. And he's like, "No, Lucas had, he had this huge world." And I was like, "Listen, I mean, he was okay. He couldn't finish his own series. I'm just trying to find every little thing,
Yeah.
like, to piss him off. I
Mhm.
love him to death." And and I said, "I mean, like, look, if I wanted to create something and just let people run it, I'd do it too." He's like, "Well, then do it." And I'm like, I'm not into dumb challenges, and I realized I didn't think that last statement was like, I could do this, he's like, well, then do it. And I'm like, oh, you got me there.
Mhm.
Okay. So I didn't think that argument through, but then I said, I'm not into dumb challenges. And then, I let him know. I was like, I'm just picking on you. I love to fuck with you about all this stuff.
Mhm.
And he's like, well, what about dumb challenges? I thought you weren't into that. I was like, Frito, I am the master of dumb challenges. I got my wife pregnant during a pandemic. Okay. Like, I'm all about dumb challenges.
When I wasn't working and couldn't
I'm
figure out
not,
what else to do.
no, and I have no work prospects in sight. So yeah, I'm all about dumb challenges.
Mhm.
So it's life, and it's interesting, and 2021 is here. What do you expect to accomplish? Do you have any goals? Do you have anything you'd like to see happen? You
I
know,
My goal or my hope, not so much the goal, my hope
yeah,
is to be able to build upon uniting the people that are willing to have difficult conversations.
And that's
Uh,
hard.
and that, oh, I know.
Yeah.
But I think that if you sat around waiting for people to tell you that what you wanted to do was a good idea, you'd never do anything.
Yeah.
So you kind of just got to go. I am too stupid to know that I should fail, so
Yeah.
I just go forward anyway.
Amen.
And I also have a strong amount of not give a fuck in my system,
I know
very
that. Yeah.
strong.
Yeah.
And so that means that I don't. Much of our world is concerned about the opinions of other people and trying to please people, trying to make sure that no one dislikes you, whatever.
Yeah.
I could give a shit
Yeah.
whether what people think about what I'm trying to do, as long as I believe in what it is that I'm doing.
Yeah.
If you think talking badly about me or criticizing me is enough to make me stop what I'm doing, you don't know me well enough.
Yep.
You don't know me well enough. You know me well enough, but
Yeah.
I was like, anybody that knows me closely knows that's not how I don't concern myself with any of that. I don't want to get caught up in the noise. So I'm just going to keep putting one foot in front of the other one, doing whatever I can to help put the world in a positive direction. And if I fail, I want to make sure that I fail in the direction of success.
Yeah. I agree with you on that. And I'm trying to be better because I'm not gonna lie. I get not scared. Yeah, I get scared of like those challenging conversations
Mm,
because of cancel culture, because of like, this, like I said, no one really listens to this podcast. So I can say pretty much whatever I want. It's just, I'm not also going to say anything
mm,
stupid or just, you know, flat out mean or
mm,
just thoughtless. But there are certain things that I really, should face and say like, okay, so if you disagree with this, why, or where are you even getting your information from? And I've been doing that more so this year, but I've been thinking more because at the end of the day, our kids are looking up to us.
mm,
And one of the lines is, in Hamilton, is like, if you don't stand up, for anything, then what are you standing for?
mm.
Like what are you fighting for? If you fight for nothing, then what are you standing for? Like, it's like, I don't, you're not
I
there.
can't live my life in a way that where I look at myself in the mirror and
Yeah.
my son sees somebody that was weak.
Yeah. Exactly.
I'm not gonna let that happen. So for me, it's and also just trying to make sure that I'm committed to something that's larger than myself
Yeah.
and larger than my own interest. I can't concern myself. You will never please everybody, no matter what you say or do. Someone
Never.
will have a problem with it, and
Yeah.
that person has access to the internet.
Yeah.
They want you to be concerned with what they think. They're empowered by people concerning themselves with what they think.
Yeah.
I have no concern for what any of them think, as long as I think that what I'm doing is the right thing to do.
Absolutely.
So if like somebody leaves a comment that like, or want to say something to me that they're bothered by,
Yeah.
if you think I probably haven't even read it.
Yeah.
Like if you think that I haven't, like, forget if I read it, I definitely don't care about it.
Yeah.
But I'm just, so let me stop you right there, and then I probably haven't even read it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll say "seen" on the
Yeah.
message. That doesn't mean I read it. It just means I want to get it off my
Yeah. We alerts because it's bothering me.
notification. But I haven't
Yep.
actually. I don't care, and I mean that in the nicest way possible. And that I care about you, even if you don't care about me.
Yeah.
And I'm fighting for you, even if you don't give a shit about me, because I'm not worried about you in one way or the other.
Yeah.
I'm going to try to help you regardless, because you're a human being on this earth, and I think we
Absolutely.
should. But other than that, like people's opinions to tell me that I should stop what I'm doing or do it differently or whatever, well then you do it.
Yeah.
Like if you think that what I'm doing is the wrong way to do it, get off your ass and you do it.
Yeah.
If you can't, then shut up.
Yeah. And that I think that's good that you have that in you. And I'm trying to get that for myself, especially if I'm embarking on writing.
Mm,
And in the business that I'm getting into, it's not just novel writing, but if you're going to write anything that's in a screen format, either television or film, there's going to be people telling you, you should change this, you should change this, you should change this. It's either that or you go to the indie format, which is very hard.
mm,
Either way, you still got to be very, very direct about your vision, about
mm,
where you want this to go,
mm,
especially as a writer.
yeah.
If you can get full control of your directing it as well as writing it, then
Mm,
that's even better. But even then, I mean, you could be Christopher Nolan or Denis Villeneuve and create your masterpiece. And guess what? The studio will do? We're going to put it on HBO Max.
mm,
Like you put in all this effort and everything, and we're
mm,
going to put it on HBO Max, or they're going to fight you. And then remember, Christopher Nolan's one of a few directors that
mm.
will actually get what they want from, like having their end,
Yeah.
director's cut.
Mhm. I think there's something to be said for that I admire in all of them, and that at some point you have to do without much concern for what people are going to think about what it is that you're doing.
Yeah.
And if you, because you'll never please everybody, like I said, and also because they're making the art that they want to make,
Yep.
not necessarily for who's going to watch it.
Yeah.
Just because this is what they feel impassioned about making.
Yeah.
They hope people like it, but they don't make it to be liked.
Yes.
They make it because it's what drives them.
Yes.
And some people that aren't in the artistic mind space,
Yeah.
like you and I are, have a hard time understanding that because they live a lot of their lives for the satisfaction of others.
Yes.
But we can't operate that way.
Yeah.
Or it doesn't help us to operate that way as writers. I mean, it doesn't help
Absolutely.
us. You kind of just got to put your best foot forward and say, this is a story I think needs to be told.
Yeah.
And I'm going to feel good about writing it, whether it never leaves my hard drive or
Yeah.
the whole world sees it. One way or another, I'm going
Yeah.
to feel the same way about the fact that I wrote it.
Absolutely. I really appreciate this conversation and everything we've
Indeed.
talked about. And it's been too long. Too long since we've spoken.
Yeah,
And I'm really glad that you're doing well. And I'm glad we got to kick off this new year with this episode and with you. And can the people watching and listening find you on social media?
yeah, I am on Instagram primarily. That's the easiest way to reach me.
Same.
Do right and fear nothing.
Do right and fear nothing. And as always, you can find the podcast at on Instagram at Jorge's Isolation Podcast, and on YouTube it's under Jorge Chapa, the channel there. And Jared, thank you so much for joining me today. This has been an amazing conversation. Everybody out there, we're gonna kick off the year right, and let's just make this year a better one than last year. So thank you for watching.
It ain't gonna be hard to be.
No, anything should be better. All right, everybody. Thank you for watching and listening, and have a good one.